This is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a marvelous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. Well, I have a challenge for Sub-Saharan Africans. Rise up and take a stand. Now, I'm making this charge because people are coming for Africans, including Black Americans like me, who say anything about Egypt. Now you can't even get the word Egypt out of your mouth before they come after you. And they say things like, ancient Egyptians were not black. They don't have anything to do with you, so you need to stop talking about them. And they really try to drive that point home when they say this: you're a Sub-Saharan African, you're a West African, and that's all you'll ever be. Now that's what they're saying to me. So those of us who identify as Black Americans have been given an identity, and that is an identity of shame, embarrassment, and humiliation because we came through the transatlantic slave trade, which I call a journey of survival. But they don't see us that way, and they want us to see ourselves the way they see us. And what's really clear is that they have no respect for West Africans or Sub-Saharan Africans. Matter of fact, they don't even want us to identify with Kenyans and Ugandans and Rwandans, people who are actually black. They want us to be West Africans because they have put that stigma on West Africans, and they want us to wear that stigma no matter what. And if we try to identify with anything else, they call themselves trying to put us in check. Well, now, what I think about this is that these people protest too much. Why do you get upset because Black people, including Black Americans like myself, say something about Egypt? And what it is that they are trying to bully you into not saying anything about Egypt, trying to embarrass you. You are Sub-Saharan African. Like, so, some of the greatest kingdoms of Africa were West African, Sub-Saharan Africans. But the reality is there's no such thing as Sub-Saharan Africans. They're just trying to do that to separate dark-skinned Black Africans from invaders, because that's all they are. When we start talking about these people in Northern Africa, we're just talking about invaders. But they want us to think that, no, these people are indigenous to Morocco and Tunisia and Algeria and Egypt. And we know that's not so. But they try to bully you. And I see that many Africans would rather come on a platform and fight Black Americans than stand up for Africa. Egypt is in Africa. Egypt should be stood up for too. Egypt should be fought for too, because there are Black Egyptians to this day. And they are calling them Nubians. And used to be, Nubian was a dirty word. That was black. It meant black. But now, because they know that the 25th dynasty of Egypt was ruled by Nubians, now they're saying you're not a Nubian, you're a West African. That's what they're saying to me. I'm an American. They don't know where I came from any more than I do. But they've made a decision about who we are. And they have pushed that and pushed that and pushed that. And what they've tried to do is diminish West Africa, calling it Sub-Saharan Africa. It's Africa. And so my response is always, no, all of it is Africa. All of it belongs to Black people, including Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, you name it. If it's in Africa, it belongs to the Black Africans, period. Now that's how I see it. And I think Sub-Saharan Africans should take a stand. I really think Africans are too nice. I think they're a little bit, some of them, I just think too many of them behave in such a timid fashion toward those invaders to Africa. But they don't feel intimidated by taking on Black Americans and other Africans, but they don't want to take on the invaders, and that's who needs to be dealt with, the invaders. So I'm saying Sub-Saharan Africans need to rise up. You know your history, right? So talk about your West African history, your Sub-Saharan African history, like I do. Because they can't embarrass me whether I'm from Sub-Saharan Africa or whether I'm from Egypt or Israel or wherever I'm from. You can't embarrass me. You cannot embarrass me. I am unembarrassable. Because a dirty deal was done to Africa and African people in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They have used religion to bamboozle people, exploit, and rob African and African descended people. When we bring in the Catholic Church, and somebody brought the Catholic Church into one of my discussions, they have stolen and taken things from all over the world and buried that stuff in the Vatican. Now, that's what they say. I don't know that to be true, but that's what's being said. And even in America, with the indigenous people of America, they have documents and treaties that tell what they did to the indigenous people of North America in order to take their land and their identities. And I didn't know that either, but the indigenous people know about it. And the Pope came, called himself, apologizing to them because of the massacre that they created in North America with the approval and blessing of the Catholic Church. He wanted to apologize, and those people said, no, we don't want you to apologize. We want you to go back and get that treaty and rescind that treaty that you reneged on. I'm not really sure of the whole thing. I'll have to go back and really do more research. But they had some real concerns about what had been done to them as a people in the past by the Catholic Church when the Pope came to visit them. And I think he went to the indigenous people thinking that they were going to roll out the red carpet and give him the royal treatment like they've done in the past, and that they were going to be so glad to see him where they weren't so glad to see him. And they let him know how they felt. And they said, we want you to go get that treaty and repeal or rescind that treaty. Everybody knows, or most of us know now, if you're not European, you know you've been bamboozled. You know you've been hoodwinked. You know you've been stolen from. You know that a genocide has been perpetrated against you. And that is the critical race theory, that the interests of white people were advanced at the expense of others. That's the critical race theory, and that's what they're running from. But they're also running from the 1619 Project, which is very powerful because it says that America began in 1619 when they admit that they started bringing Africans into this country for the purpose of building this empire. So that's a very powerful statement. And the 1619 Project establishes Black Americans as the builders of this empire that some call Babylon. So there's this big push to divide Africa and Africans and say North Africans and then Sub-Saharan Africans and West Africans. And so that's why they throw this West African and Sub-Saharan African at me, because in their minds that diminishes me. But in my mind, it empowers me, because my response is, yes, I'm Sub-Saharan African, I'm North African, I'm Egyptian, I'm Ethiopian, I'm all of it, because all of it belongs to Black people. And I don't see us as being divided in terms of how colonizers and enslavers look at it. So I embrace all of it. And another thing, what is Europe known for? What are they known for besides fighting each other? During the Middle Ages, when all of this exploitation of other people began, Europe was in crisis. They had problems all over. They had problems with war. They were fighting wars all the time. They were plagued with disease, the bubonic plagues, and other plagues and diseases that had to do with filth. They had religious wars over whether or not it was going to be a Catholic or a Protestant environment. They had food shortages because it was so cold, the ground was frozen, and they couldn't grow crops. And then they had economic wars because they didn't have jobs. So Europe was not a powerhouse of anything but disaster. Europe was really a disaster. So the governments of those countries were paying people like Christopher Columbus to go around the world looking for somebody to exploit. They called it exploring, but it was really exploiting. So one group went into Africa and they discovered Africa, and they saw those great civilizations in Africa, and they saw that all of the people were Black. They were prosperous, they were content, and they were welcoming. And that was the mistake of Africa. Then they came into America and they saw there were great civilizations here. The people were also melanated, prosperous, content, and welcoming. And they put the fighting machine to them too. And that is where we are now. We are dealing with people who have never accomplished anything on their own continent, but they go other places fighting unprovoked wars, taking other people's accomplishments and claiming things that they didn't accomplish. But wherever they went, there was already civilizations established. There was already infrastructure established. There were already people living there, living in their culture. And they went in and destroyed as much of it as they could. They just fought each other until they discovered Africa. And yes, they go somewhere where people are already living and building and have already built civilizations and infrastructures and everything. And they go into the place and discover it. So they came in and discovered Africa. And they saw the greatness of Africa, especially Egypt. And they try to cut the rest of Africa off and highlight Egypt and give that to themselves, because at the end of the day, what have they accomplished in Europe? What are they known for? This is what I want somebody to tell me. So yes, they come into Africa and say, well, we did this. This is ours. It's not yours. And they're obsessed over it. And no matter how many black faces you show them, no matter how many curly, nappy hair, I know some people don't like nappy, but no matter how much textured hair you show them, no matter how many different kinds of black features you show them, they're still going to tell you that ancient Egyptians were white. And when you say, yes, they were white after the Macedonians and the Greeks and Ptolemies invaded the place, after Europeans and the Arabs and all of those people invaded the place and took over the Egyptians' culture, yeah, it was white then, but it wasn't white before they got there. They were Johnny-come-latelys to Egypt. But I think the reason these people get so upset, and I just had this epiphany, is because they haven't accomplished anything in Europe. Europe isn't known for anything great. So I guess that's our answer. It's not just about Egypt, it's about all of Africa. And they're all interconnected. I truly believe that they're all interconnected. Trying to separate this group from that group and the other group, and trying to tell these people are they're better than those people, and you're the same people. And everybody's falling for it. So it's time for West Africans, Sub-Saharan Africans. It's time for you to take a stand and say something. It's time to say something. Because they've been getting away with this narrative and this rhetoric for way too long. They've been getting away with it too long because they control the media. But Africa, if Africa was so terrible, how come they won't stay out from over there? How about that? If Africa is so terrible, how come Africans can't get rid of them? That's a question. So I think that West Africans should stand up and let the world know who you are and what your greatness is, and why they need to keep your names out their mouths because they don't know what they're talking about. So my challenge is for you that if you're making videos about Black Americans, stop and make a video about the greatness of West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and let the world know there is no such thing as a Sub-Saharan African. That's a colonizer's term. That's a term of division. If a Black American says, no, I'm an American descendant of slavery, a lot of West Africans and a lot of African people get upset. Oh, you've been xenophobic. You've been divisive. And then these people will come over here and call you a Sub-Saharan African, dividing you from North Africa and trying to make it seem like you're less than a North African. So I want you to take a stand, rise up and say, no, you're wrong. This is who I am. I come from the great kingdom of whatever you came from. And let the world know and say it with your full chest. Say it like you mean it. That's what I think. I think that we all need to take a stand for all of Africa, not just Egypt, all of Africa, because all of it was given to the black people. They call them Ham's children. Used to be being a Hamite was a bad thing. You were black. Now you see people call themselves Hamites that are not even black. So everything that we have and anything that we try to take pride in somehow ends up being theirs. When are West Africans going to stand up and say something? Because we don't know your history as well as you do. So you need to tell it. And tell it like you mean it. Okay, y'all, that's what I think about this. Let me know what you think about the video. Subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Share the video. And as always, have a great day.